The Pit Press Podcast.
Reynolds launches from downtown. No. Van Horn, no. And that's it. New Mexico with it.
Some big-time games and shots. How about this? Where have you been? MC knocking him down twice. Looking top and keeping it alive. House from knee. Get it! This kid is amazing. This is what got them in trouble. That ball screen giving up the mid-range. Look at this foul. House again. It's topping. Fifth assist.
And New Mexico's going to dribble out the clock. The Lobos three-peat as conference tournament champions Kendall Williams fires the ball into the air. But New Mexico wins it this afternoon 64-58 over San Diego State. And the Lobos claim the Mountain West Conference's automatic bid into the NCAA Tournament.
Dent up the floor. Down one. Dent in the lane. Left hand is fouled. He scores. It counts.
Wow, it looked like Colorado State was expecting New Mexico to call a timeout because they didn't get their back and get their defense set at all. That's the worst thing that can happen to you in that situation.
Hey. My name is Ryan Tamori. This is the Pit Press Podcast. We are going to recap Wednesday night's massive win for UNM over Colorado State as I adjust my mic there. 68-66. But before we get to that, I'm going to thank the sponsors first before I get to these guys. Looking for a place to watch the Lobos when they are on the road? Head over to Turquoise Desert Tap Room. Only a few minutes away from the Santa Ana Star Casino. You can catch the Lobos' other college basketball games. March Madness is right around the corner. And all the NBA and NHL action. Stop by for food. Stop by for drinks. Stop by for basketball and hockey. Go make a bet at Santa Ana Star Casino and head over there and watch it. Turquoise Desert Tap Room also serves local brews on tap. Find them on Facebook and Instagram at Turquoise Desert Tap Room. And Abrazo Homes is Lobo owned and Lobo operated and a proud supporter of the University of New Mexico Athletic Department and its student athletes. Join the movement and help Abrazo Homes build momentum by contributing to the 505 Sports Venture Foundation or the UNM Lobo Club. UNM Lobo Club. When you buy an Abrazo home, you become a part of the Abrazo Familia. Looking to build the perfect home in New Mexico, find them at abrazohomes.com. I just thought I'd do that before I actually got to you guys. It makes it easier for me. Hey, the panel tonight, I will start with Mr. Nick Nunez, a producer and play-by-play announcer with ProView Networks. How are you doing, man?
Doing good, Ryan. Nice to be talking Lobo hoops with you guys. Big win last night. So
I had you on mute. Go ahead.
No. Good to talk to you guys, and big win for the Lobos last night. So ready to get into it.
You can follow him at NM Sportscapper on Twitter. Mr. Jacob Neff, how you doing?
Good, Ryan. I know we watched the game last night together. I wasn't very active on Twitter because I was literally too into the game, but ready to talk about it last night and talk about some of the good and some of the things that I think we can improve on.
That's because you and I, well, mostly you, and I wrote it, thought Colorado State was kind of in a very good spot at +7.5 and +8, and we took it, and we're winners. So I'm sure many people listening that will love that. And all the way from the Bay Area, and a fellow St. Pius Sarton, and played for Damian Segura, much like Nick, a two-time offensive lineman for San Juan Mendoza, Mr. Richard Thompson. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, guys. Thanks for having me back on. Ready to talk about this game and also watch the Johnny Manziel interview on Club Shay Shay with Shannon Sharp. Pretty good stuff, and it reminded me of when I actually ran face-to-face with Johnny Football in Vegas coming out of the bathroom at a pool party at Mandalay Bay. he proceeded to get on stage with Rob Gronkowski and spray champagne on everyone down below, and it was a good time. So I was recollecting on that earlier today, but ready to talk about basketball now.
If you need advice on how to lose weight, talk to Johnny Manziel. I also found this clip for you, Rick, because I thought about it and I've been meaning to do it forever, and definitely up there in my extensive list of favorite comedies of all time. Richard, Mr. Chris Farley. Getting into the game, I mean, I'll just start actually just to kind of around Lobo land, as I always call it. The UNM women's basketball team lost on a late three-pointer at Boise State. They lost 58-55. They moved to 18-9 overall in the season, 9-5 in conference play. But Nay Cumber and Nia Wilson both had 15 points, and Anaya Augment finishing in double figures with 12 points as well. Still some positives for UNM as they get inch closer to the Mountain West tournament. And college baseball's around the season. The UNM baseball team is 2-2. So I love me some baseball, Nick. I know you don't love it. It's kind of like deja vu around here with Donovan Dent. Here it is.
Dent up the floor. Down one. Dent in the lane. Left hand. He scores.
So he hasn't done it just once. He hasn't done it just twice. He's done it 3 times. We have other things to get to, but Rick, just your thoughts about how that game ended, and you're a big Donovan Dent fan, just how that game kind of concluded, because it was awesome. And I didn't go to the game. I decided to avoid people and stayed home. And I'm sure it seemed like a pretty awesome atmosphere, although it looked like some of the cheerbacks were empty. But again, it's 8 o'clock on a school night.
Yeah, it looked pretty electric to me. That's the play I expected to run, obviously, with it being successful 2 times before. Just let Donovan go full speed and try to get to the rim with all the fouls they were calling. Not a bad way to go. And on the other side of it, I just look at it for Coach Medved on Colorado State, and I can't stop scratching my head. I thought about it about 10 times today, about the defense they decided to play on that last possession. Why would you start at half court, for one thing? And 2, why, as I know they were saying their strategy was to build a wall, but in that case, I'm going man to man and just trying to stop the ball at all costs when you have a electric player on the other end of the court that only took 4 dribbles to get to the rim and finish with his left hand like he's so comfortable doing. And doing that, on probably not 100% ankle, you just can't say enough about that play at the end. But, it's something we're accustomed to seeing. And it was just a great finish by the Lobos. It was really going to come down to who had the ball last, because both teams almost played the same game, 24 field goals each, 6 3-pointers for Colorado State, 5 for New Mexico. Free throws were about even, 12-15 for UNM. So they almost played the same game, and it just came down to who had the ball last. And thank God Donovan Dent did.
I think they made, and we might wrap it up with this, but I think that they made things interesting. And I think it kind of showed once again how good this league is and how deep it is and how hard it is to win on the road. But I kind of thought that if UNM had dropped that, they were in deep trouble in the tournament. And I think that solidified them in the tournament. I really think probably a win at Boise. I don't think they're winning the last game at Utah State. And Utah State's schedule really is nice towards the end of the year. But that win gets them tied for 3rd place with San Diego State. And it drops Colorado State down to, I guess, technically 4th place, 5th place. So again, big win. Nick, just your thoughts on Donovan Dent.
No, it was an incredible play, Ryan. As Rick mentioned, he's done it 2 other times this season. I thought it was the right play call by Coach Pitino. Think about when he called that play. He called a timeout right before Stevens' second free throw. He told the team in the huddle, likely, we're not taking a timeout. get the ball to Donnie, and go. And it was just executed perfectly. I thought Coach Pitino made a good call on some of his substitutions. I think he noticed he put Jamarl Baker Jr. in and he put Mustafa Mzila in. So he put a lot of shooters out there. And that allowed Donnie to kind of just break his man down and go to the lane. So I thought it was good coaching adjustments. I agree with Rick. I question the decision to allow Donovan Dent to just catch the ball so freely and run on a full head of steam. So, no, great finish, great win for us.
I wonder if I don't think it was brought up because I think Nico Vedved is a fantastic coach, but I wonder if they thought that UNM was going to call timeout, and we might get into that more later. But Jacob, your just thoughts on that play?
Yeah, I mean, as a fan, as somebody that watches this team consistently, it's the right thing to do. I mean, it's the most sure thing that you can ask for, right? We don't really have the luxury of having somebody be able to come down to a last second shot and pull up and hit it. We don't really have that person on our team where we could say they've done it before, right? The best play for us, and as you could see, like you said, we've done it 3 times this year now, is give the ball to Dent, see if he could get to the rim. If it's congested, he could dump it off to a big guy, or potentially pass it out. But I mean, that was perfect. And as these guys have already said, I'm not going to keep beating a dead horse, but terrible decision to not have somebody up on Donovan when he catches the ball there, because it just let him get into his motion of running full stride down the court. And then when you looked at that play, they had to recover so fast because, like he said, everybody started that play at midcourt. So I don't really know what that plan was, or if they thought that was the best thing to do. But yeah, Donovan Dent, again, huge. Obviously, he would have gotten fouled on that play, but to make the basket on top of that just goes to show you how special he is. And like I've been saying all year, I think he's the most consistent and obviously the best decision maker on this team. And you want the ball in that person's hand at the end of the game.
One of the best things about last night on CBS Sports was Avery Johnson calling the game. Color guy with play-by-play. I don't know who the play-by-play was, but here he is.
It looked like Colorado State was expecting New Mexico to call a timeout because they didn't get their back and get their defense set at all. That's the worst thing that can happen to you in that situation defensively.
I just loved hearing that because it's Avery Johnson, and I was just hoping maybe he would talk about his time with the Spurs. Here's the last play of the game. I thought it was in Isaiah Stevens' hands, and I thought he was going to take the shot.
Stevens can't get loose. It's Scott Clifford for the win. New Mexico holds on.
And Nick, I'll start with you. I thought it was pretty good defense there. And again, this has been a bright spot for UNM compared to what we saw last season. I don't know why I said that, but I thought that was pretty good defense in the end. I would think if you watch Tom Moser's coming to my mind, Coach Tom Moser, but if you're watching that game, you're thinking, oh man, Isaiah Stevens has got the ball. And I thought, man, I flashed back last year to Keenan Blackshear, Lamar Butler. And the tide turns. But your thoughts overall on the defense there in the final play?
I thought Jalen House did a fantastic job of denying Isaiah Stevens. That's been talked about how they flashed Stevens in the corner and House was just all over him. I thought Nelly was disciplined on the catch. He got out of position a little initially, but he stayed disciplined, didn't fall for a pump fake, contested a shot, and they didn't even get it off at the end. So I thought they executed fantastically on that final play.
Yeah, I thought it was a really great play. Rick, go ahead.
Rick. I think in that situation, though, it's still a 2-point game, right? That was what it finished at, or was it 3 in the end? 2. So I think at that point in the game, you have to find a way to get it to Stevens, and you don't get it to him in the corner where you're putting him on the baseline. I think that's kind of Clifford is a great player, but he was 1 for 9 in the game, and I don't think that's who you should be giving the ball to on the last shot there. I know maybe the first option wasn't open, but again, I would be going to the hoop the way that they were calling fouls if I was Colorado. I know they were going for the win and trying to squeak out of there, but some interesting coaching decisions for me on the last two.
Jacob, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think great job, obviously, on getting Stevens as soon as the ball was inbounded. That's that was the guy that willed them into the game. If without him and Scott last night, that team was in deep trouble. They continuously carried the load and kept cutting the deficit every single time that they could. What drove me nuts more than anything wasn't actually the last play of the game. It was House fouling Stevens 35 feet from the basket with 7 seconds to go, because that could have lost them the game. And in that game, with how poorly, besides Stevens, everybody was shooting, you've got to force them to make a shot. And it worked out in the end, but there's going to be a time where that doesn't work out. And that almost put UNM at the point where they lost 3 back-to-back to-back home games in this conference, and could have really put them in a bad spot to make the tournament, because the tournament is going to look at how well you defended your home court in this conference and how well you're playing, and that would have been really rough. So we've talked about it all year. We live and die with how the decisions that he makes. And last night, in a game where they're calling fouls so strictly, you can't be reaching 35 feet away from the hoop with 7 seconds to go and fouling him.
Rick, speaking of the defense, and I was going to kind of from the last play, but you had said that from a Colorado State perspective, they forced UNM into a slower paced, a lower scoring game. We saw Boise State do that. What did you take away from Colorado State doing that? And then, Nick, I'll get to you, because they had kind of switched to what Boise State did. I think there was, and Jacob, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it was about 6-7 minutes left in the game, and CSU switched to that 1-3-1. But Rick, that was one of the points you wanted to make, and I wanted your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I don't think it was just the zone alone. Colorado State's a longer team. Their guards are longer. Clifford's an NBA prospect. Stevens is an NBA prospect. They're both good on defense as well on offense, and they challenge everything. And even though Colorado State turned it over 12 times, I think the Lobos only generated, 5 or 6 points off those turnovers. And I was chatting with Coach Moser on Twitter about it, and I think the reason why is they're just taking highly contested shots. And I don't know if it's because of the length that everything is contested the last 2 or 3 games, but they're not even out of a set offense. They don't seem to be moving the ball very well and creating open looks. And when Colorado State dropped into that zone, the Lobos shot 5 straight 3-pointers. Yeah, they made a couple of them, thank goodness, because it was at a crucial stretch of the game. But I don't think one of those 4 to 5 possessions they got the ball inside and worked it out. And when you're playing against a 1-3-1, you have to space it out, get guys in the corners, and then have a playmaker in the middle. And I am not confident in their offense going against the zone. It hasn't looked good in conference play to me, and it usually results in outside shots, which is what the other team wants us to do, since we're not a high percentage 3-point shooting team. But you just have to give the Lobos credit. They did, House did make some head-scratching defensive plays, but he made that big shot also to even give him a chance, right? The second to last shot there, that crazy bank shot where he could have been fouled also. So I think Colorado State's defense did give us a hard time. They made us play their pace of game, and we were still able to win it, which says a lot about the Lobos.
Yeah, I don't think they've given up this year at any aspect of their games. I mean, look what they did at San Diego State on Friday night. They crawled back and got within 3. Nick, I'm going to you with that. You had mentioned the way that 1-3 zone played out towards the end of the game. It allowed Colorado State to crawl back into the game. and Rick kind of touched it. They were kind of forcing UNM to shoot longer shots or farther shots. Just your thoughts about that.
I agree with Rick. I mean, I think Rick pointed it out in the group text that they shot like 5 threes in a row when they went to that 1-3-1 zone. And I mean, I think the offense is trying to add different wrinkles, Ryan. I think Coach Pitino's talked about it. They want to get the ball inside more. Against the zone, it's a little harder because people are guarding space. But you saw Nelly getting some low post touches. This was when Colorado State was in a man-to-man. Couple plays that stood out to me, that give and go to Jalen House, and then Nelly hitting top it on the cut. So I think they're trying to get the ball inside. But to your point and to Rick's point, I don't think they've been that good against the zone this year. I mean, they were okay against Nevada when the 1-3-1 came out. The Boise State zone gave them a lot of problems defensively. So there's just been times throughout this season where their zone offense has not looked good. And you know, Baker's not shooting the ball very well right now. Zill's been okay. You know, Mash hit a 3 last night. Dent hit a nice looking 3 in the half court. But they just got to find ways to generate more offense against the zone. I totally agree.
One of the things that kind of killed him last night, again, was free throw shooting, 15 of 23. This game was played on February 21st. I mean, it's literally the eve of March. Missing 8 free throws, that's the difference between maybe winning and losing that game. Obviously, he hit the and one last night to put them up 2, which at least makes it a one. I mean, makes it a full one possession game. I don't know if you say it like that, but Jacob, that was one of the points you wanted to make, and I'm wearing the hat, and I'll turn it around. But you know, there you go. Make your free throws.
Yeah, I mean that you can't shoot what was it, 65% from the free throw line at home. I know that the big guys contributed to most of that. They went 4 for 8, and the rest of the team went like 9 for 15. So the guards still not, you know, in a percentage that's very much higher than 50%. That's like sub 66%. But you know, that kills them. And another thing that kills the Lobos too, and I don't know if people have, you know, that the way that they've been calling these games and the foul shots kill them, because they can't get out and run after they fouled another team. And that's a perfect time for these teams to set up a 1-3-1 zone and a little bit of pressure, because it's not coming off a miss. It's even if they make it, the Lobos can get the ball in quick and push the pace down the floor. But when everybody's standing at the free throw line trying to get a rebound and the whole rest of the team is back, you're already set up in a free throw. Or if they make it, they can set, you know, a set defense. So that's another thing that's killing this team is giving, and that's kind of what propelled them to get back into the game, because Scott and Stevens drilled their free throws down the stretch, and that's what, you know, allowed them to make that defense get set up. So that's one thing that's going to be super important down the stretch, is not, you know, continuously letting these teams get to the foul line and throwing them off their game, because these teams aren't stupid. There's a reason why they're playing 1-3-1 zones, and it's because the Lobos, they have to know that they're not a good 3-point shooting team. I mean, you just have to see it, right? You played a majority of the season now, but what the Lobos don't have is the discipline to not take those shots. So the other team knows, if I put them in that situation and give them a little space to shoot a 3, they're going to shoot it, because they have shooters and they have guys that want to take those shots. And then a couple empty possessions in a row and a couple of fouls on the other end that give them 2 free throws, 4-6 points, you know, come rattling up really quick. And now you've got a 1 possession game. And that's what happened. And they're going to have to be careful of that moving forward, going down the stretch and into the conference tournament.
This is very big for me on this. Kind of changing subjects, but New Mexico had just 4 turnovers, tied for the lowest total in program history and the fewest since 4 at Boise State in 2013 and 2014. I know they only won by 2, but man, when you only turn over the ball like that, that is really, I don't care where you are, who you're playing, compared to some of the crap, even though I love it, crap college basketball I've seen where it's turnover after turnover. That's really impressive, man. If they take care of the ball like that, you're going to prove this naysayer wrong because um, I still think if they get an 7, 8, or 9 seed or 10 seed, and they got to get Mississippi State or Michigan. I don't know if Michigan State's making the tournament now. You can't lose to Iowa at home, but you get insert Big Ten team here, or you get insert SEC team here, or you get insert Big 12 team here, which is probably the best conference in college basketball. I think they're in trouble in the first round. But if you're not turning over the ball like that, that to me is really, really impressive. And they forced 12 turnovers from Colorado State. So that to me, eight turnover differential there. That's the difference in the game.
Just to comment on that though, the Lobos have to take advantage of those turnovers, and that's something they didn't do last night. So you can turn the ball over 4 times, and you could turn, and I think Colorado State had 4. So in an 8-point turnover differential, there was only a 5-point swing. You've got to make the other team pay for that at home. So that's going to be important because, yes, that's something that should have won them the game last night when the other team's giving up double-digit turnovers and you've only turned the ball over 4 times. But they've got to be more efficient, with those turnovers and make the teams pay like they have, earlier in the season.
And part of that is not shooting 3-pointers when you're on a 3-on-1 fast break and deciding to pull up. Like you're saying, they have to capitalize, especially when your bench is getting outscored, I think 16-4 also. So totally agree.
That was one of your comments, Jake, and Rick, you brought it up. Just very poor bench production last night. 1 of 10. 1 of 10 from the field, 1 of 7 from 3, 3 rebounds, and 1 assist. We've talked about depth here. I don't know. That's not very good. I think Amzil had a nice big 3 towards the end of the game. He was 1 of 3 from 3. That was his only bucket.
Yeah, I mean, think about that. If he doesn't make that 3, we got 1 point of production from our bench, 3 rebounds and 1 assist. You're not going to win many games when your bench is coming in and you're getting that type of production. And another thing that's starting to rear its head that we're not really paying attention to is the inconsistency of Trey Washington. I mean, it's becoming True Washington. It's becoming a roller coaster. Like it's like there's nights where he plays really well on the defensive end. There's nights where he plays decent on the offensive end and struggles on the defensive end, vice versa. We really need him to step up because in the tournament, you can't run 7 guys deep and expect to win very many games. So we need somebody to step up besides Amzil because he's been carrying the bench for the better half of the last 2 months consistently. So we need that one other player to step up.
Jamal Baker Jr., 14 minutes, 0 for 3, all from 3. He's not looked good in the last 2 games, which, again, I've said he was the X factor. That's kind of a disappointment. Yeah, True Washington, 0 for 2, 3 minutes. I don't know where Mushila, I don't. That's probably a game where you can play Forsling. If you tell me I'm wrong, and Nick, you're probably your dad would yell at me for that, but I see Rick goes unmuted. I don't know. At least throw him in there and see what can happen. But I know people are already laughing at me, but that's how I don't know. There's no, I can't see them. I can't even see them making a deep run in Vegas next month with playing a lineup, like playing guys like that and that rotation and those minutes. I don't know how you do it. I thought Isaiah Stevens played a great game. He kind of willed them back. I think he had scored 8 or 9 of their 10 points in that run towards the end. He finished with 20. He had 9 assists and 5 turnovers, but he did have 5 rebounds. I think he's a special player, man. I think he's a late 2nd round draft pick. But I thought his play in the end of that game was really impressive. I don't know if anybody wants to comment on that. I think he's fun to watch. I'm not trying to put him on the spot. Jacob, you're not as high on him as a lot of the region is or a lot of the country. If
Yeah.
anybody has a comment on that.
No, I mean, yeah, just to respond to that, I think he has off and on nights. I guess everybody does, but more consistency out of him would be great. I just think that he's going, if you're talking about next level with size, and sometimes I know he for this conference, but I'm not sure how some of the talent and people he would have to potentially guard even on second units. But for this conference, yes, last night they they would have been in a world of hurt without him. But there has been other games like the San Diego State game where he's Casper and he's just totally missing. You know what I mean? So more consistency for me would be the thing. But yes, he is still a great player for this conference. I don't want that to be taken. I'm just not as high.
Right, right. No, that's all I was getting at. Um, Talking about the big guys down low, Nelly Jr. Joseph had a big game, and Coach Richard Pitino had reiterated that they need to get the ball on the side. Nick, your dad's been saying that. I'm going to go to Rick on this one first about Nelly Jr. Joseph, and then I'll go to you, Nick. But Nelly Jr. Joseph, 12 rebounds, double-double, 13 points. He had kind of a big steal at some point, I think, late in the game. I hope I'm not mistaken there. But Rick, he played well. The phenomenal Fred, the diaper dandy, JT Toppin, 8 rebounds and 5 points. But your thoughts on Nelly's performance, because he did play well, and I think he might have been the biggest reason they won with that double-double.
Yeah, he was definitely effective last night, and like we've seen, when he gets involved early and gets some easy looks or a dunk, it really propels him usually to have a bigger game in all statistical areas. He usually rebounds better, plays defense a little harder when he's involved on offense. And for him, what it comes down to is when he catches it just out of a set offense in the post, he needs to be decisive when he catches the ball. If he just catches it and turns and makes his move, he's usually good, his baby hook or whatever shot he chooses. But if he takes one or two dribbles and puts his head down, that's when it gets a little dicey for him. And he even showed that he has a little bit of a handle, though. He crossed someone over at the top of the key and came down with a monster slam. That was impressive. So really nice game from him. He has a lot of skill. He just needs to not think so much and just react a little bit more and be more decisive. And Toppin, he only had 5 field goal attempts. He was in some foul trouble, though. 25 minutes for him, but he still played hard out there and was effective on defense, held Cartier to 11 points. Outside of that last 3, he really didn't do much. And, when they get the posts involved, that's when they're their best. I think 18 shots by House is way too high. He needs to be down near maybe 15 or 12 for my liking. But I think as the post goes, the Lobos will go the rest of the season.
Nick, that was something you wanted to comment on, I believe. Well,
Yeah.
sticking with the same player, you can comment on Nelly, but Mashburn was 6 of 13 from the field. He only took 2 threes. He had 6 rebounds. You thought he was efficient on both ends of the floor. But just your thought on the post play and then Mashburn.
Yeah, first I agree with Neff and Rick. I mean, Nelly, I think one of the biggest things for him in this game was staying on the floor. I mean, he was in big foul trouble against San Diego State. And I think he's a player that kind of needs to be in for a period of time to get in a rhythm. I think sometimes his defense fuels his offense. He's pretty solid on the defensive end of the floor, showing on ball screens. I thought he battled against Scott and Cartier. So, no, I think all around he had a really fantastic game. And JT only 5 points. I think he only had, maybe 5 shot attempts, so really just didn't get a ton of shots. But active on the glass, one of the best rebounders in the conference for sure, if not top 3. But Mash, yeah, no, I was impressed with Mash. I mean, it's like a pendulum swing with Mash. It's like good game, bad game, good game. And last night was one of his good games. Was efficient, went to the basket. We like that. We like seeing him go to the basket. Got to the free throw line, only took 2 threes. And then he had 6 rebounds. He was interviewed. He did the post-game interview with Coach Pitino, and he said, yeah, defense is a point of emphasis for him. It doesn't always show in the games, but, I mean, 6 rebounds, and he didn't seem to be a defensive liability out there. So, yeah, balanced game for Mash.
Does anybody have any other comments on Mash? And
I just wanted to say 6 rebounds is great. Even when he's shooting 0 for 10, he still needs to be involved in other ways. So when he has an off game, he still needs to do something else. So good to see.
And then I'll just make a comment because I know I've been harsh on him plenty of times this year. That's all we're asking for is a night like last night. I mean, recognition of the game, the way it's being played, the way it's being called. If he does what he does last night, this team's going to be hard to beat. I mean, it really is. I mean, even on a night where they didn't look great, he at least recognized to get to the basket, and that's huge for this team because he is such a predominant jump shooter but nobody understands, and I don't even know if he gets it. He has a good off the ball take to the basket. He has coordination to get there. He's a decent sized guard that could get to the rim, and he knows how to draw contact. I see it sometimes, but then there's times where he avoids it. So last night was great. I mean, if we get that type of Mashburn for the rest of the season, it's going to be tough. So he played well last night. He really did. And when credit's due, I'll give the guys credit, and he deserved it last night.
It's a big 2-point win, however you look at it. I think I mentioned this earlier in the episode. I think that cemented them. I thought they were on the verge of not making the tournament. So that guy that wrote into the Sports Speak Up that I still have on this table, saying to mark his words, and I probably got to eat some crow. I think that win cemented them into the NCAA tournament. They don't need any setbacks losing to Fresno State and Air Force. I would think that they would handle those two teams easily, but you have 2 on the road at Boise and at Utah State. It could be a revenge game for them. That's Utah State's last game of the year, as I mentioned, on March 9th. They could be out for blood. And the way they have positioned themselves to win the conference outright, again, speaks volumes to Danny Sprinkle and how impressive they've been. I just wanted your guys' thoughts. If you think that win has cemented them into the tournament, Rick, I'll start with you there.
I'm sure Jacob will give the more expert opinion, but I agree with you, Tamari. If they win the 2 home games against Fresno and Air Force, who's lost, I think, 8 in a row now, and possibly do lose those 2 road games, I still think they'll get in with the wins they have. That 3rd win against a ranked team was the most UNM has had since 2012, 2013, when they beat 4 ranked teams. So I think our resume speaks for itself at this point. It would be nice to get one of those road wins for sure to boost us even more. But I think at this point, if they win the 2 home games, in my mind, looking at all the brackets on Twitter and everything, everyone has them in at this point that I've seen.
Jerry Palm this morning updated. He has them as a 8 seed in the Midwest taking on Texas. So you know what that means. If you were to win that game, you get a number 1 seed, and hypothetically they would get, if they were to knock off Texas, they would get Purdue in the second round if Purdue doesn't play St. Peter's or Fairleigh Dickinson, 2 schools from New Jersey. Nick, your dad's not here. I can't make the New Jersey joke. Lenardi, as of Tuesday morning, has them as the last 4 in a 7-10 matchup against South Carolina. Nick, I'll give you your thoughts, and then I will go to our in-house bracketologist, Jacob Neff.
Yeah, I think this win does cement them into the tournament. Coach Pitino talked about it in the post game, said we needed this game. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Neff probably knows, this gives them, they're 4-3 in quad 1 after the win last night. So I think that's enough. I mean, I can't remember off the top of my head what San Diego State and Colorado State are, but I think the next question, like you brought up, Ryan, is where are they going to get seeded? I mean, an 8-9 seed is tough because then you get a number 1. It's almost better if you get seeded 12. I mean, some of it's about matchups. I think, San Diego State had favorable matchups in their first round wins last year. I think it was Charleston and Furman. But yeah, a lot of it is kind of where you get seeded.
Sorry for the noise there. Jacob, I will go to you.
Yeah, I think it's got them. If I had to give a percentage, I'm saying like 90% in at this point. And the only way that I think that they could play themselves out of this is if they slip up on either Air Force or Fresno, and then they lose their first round in the Mountain West Conference tournament. I think that's the only way that I could see them, playing themselves out of the tournament. Another thing that a lot of people aren't talking about, because we're not looking at it from the perspective of we still have 2 tough road games, but we should be able to win these 2 home games. And if you beat Boise State on the road, San Diego State is for the conference. Utah State's for the conference, because they would hold the tiebreaker, beating them 2 out of 2 times. So there is still a outside chance that UNM could win this conference if they really focus and get themselves into position there, because they're going to want blood with Boise State because they came in here and beat them. So you've seen how some of these teams have reacted in revenge games. I know last night's was a really small one with UNLV and Air Force, but you get blown out by 30 on your home court, and then UNLV comes back and beats you by 30 on your home court, or vice versa. There's been a couple of instances this year where people are out for blood. So if the Lobos play themselves well over these next 3 games and they beat Boise State at Boise State, we're potentially talking about UNM going up to Spectrum for the Mountain West title tournament regular season. The Mountain West regular season conference championship.
I didn't realize that. I thought they had been eliminated, but I guess if you look at the standings, yeah, that's pretty impressive. Obviously the key is Boise State, and then you would need a few teams to slip up, and I'm looking at
I think if they win out, they control their own destiny, like Jacob's saying. That's what Robert Portnoy was reiterating last night, that they control their destiny. So I think if they win out, Jacob's correct. They got it.
Yeah, they are a game back. If they win out, they are regular season conference champions. Holy moly. That's pretty impressive to me. Does anybody have any other thoughts? I had a brain fart there and lost my train of thought. Utah State beat San Diego State. UNLV enacted revenge on Air Force after getting blown out in Vegas by 30 points. So I think it's, I just reiterating, I thought it was a really good win for them last night. I don't know if anybody has any final thoughts here before we get to Snake of the Week.
Just one final thought on the depth of the conference. Sure. Think about this. Colorado State was ranked in the top 25, and now they're 8th in the Mountain West Conference with that loss. And they're ranked.
I mean, you have Utah
Jacob
State
has something smarter to say than what I...
Well, no, yeah, I haven't said anything smart, but I don't really, I don't really want to list the teams, but as I've jokingly called it, it's the gauntlet of death the last 2 years. Utah State is 10-4, currently holding that position. Boise State's 9-4. New Mexico State is 9-5. San Diego State is 9-5. Nevada is 8-5. UNLV is 8-5, and Colorado is 8-6. Yeah, they're 8th, and then you drop to Wyoming, Fresno State. It's not even really like top heavy. It's like you're either good or you're pretty bad. And UNLV sits there at 8-5. I mean, with a game back, and you have, I think, each team playing 4 games. Man, it's going to be an exciting finish. And UNM hosts Air Force on Saturday at 2:00. Jacob, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think something to really focus in on, for Lobo fans is that it needs to go one or two ways. They need to. I wouldn't want to get an 8 or 9 seed in this tournament. I know we have a lot of viewers that think Lobos can play with any of these teams. And to me, there is a significant drop off from the top 4 seeds in the tournament to the 2 seeds in the tournament. I know this is going to sound crazy, because Kansas is such a big name, but they've been very inconsistent all year with scoring. Tennessee has been up and down. They play good defense, but they struggle against teams that can put a pace on them if they get the lead. You're talking about Marquette. I think they'd probably be one of the stronger 2 seeds because they're more well-rounded. And then you get somebody like North Carolina who would play the same style as the Lobos right now. I would not want to play Arizona, Purdue, Houston, or UConn. And that would be the potential right now if they got an 8 or 9 seed. If they were to win the first game, I would rather slot down into that 7 or 10 range, or even if they could go on a run. Something that I don't think people are thinking about is this team could propel themselves up to about a 6 seed, and that would be huge. Then we get a 3 seed, and like I'm telling you in this tournament, and I've told you this, Ryan, I think this is going to be one of the more crazy tournaments that you've seen, because just on a night-to-night basis, anybody could win. So these next 4 games are going to be super important. I think the Boise game is going to be even more important. But last night was huge because the Lobos need a bye in the Mountain West Conference tournament, because it's proven that if you have to play 4 games in a row in the Mountain West Conference tournament, you're usually not very successful in doing that, in winning it. So that bye for those first 4 teams is going to be huge.
Nick, do you have anything?
Yeah, no, I think just looking at postseason play, I mean, Mountain West tournament, let's see where they get seeded. They're going to get a bye. It's just a tough week, but getting to the NCAA tournament, wherever they get seeded, 8, 9, 10, I don't know if they'd go higher than a 7, but at the end of the day, they're going to have to play a good team sooner or later. So they're just going to have to make winning plays. They've been playing pretty well right now. Hopefully they can get themselves a good seed and make a run.
I don't know if any of you guys have a thought on this, but the fact that they've been able to win a couple games at the buzzer, unlike last year where they did get Boise State, but they had more bad endings. The 5-point blown lead to Nevada, Keenan Blackshear with the dink, the bounce, and then obviously Lamont Butler. I think that probably gives them a boost of confidence. And I've been real negative on this show, I think the last month, because I felt like they shouldn't have lost to UNLV at home. They shouldn't have lost to Boise State at home. Those are games that they should get. And I thought if they were going to get in the NCAA tournament, they could not afford to lose a game at home. But, when you still win it from Nevada, that really helps you out. But to the 2 guys that played basketball, and maybe Rick, I'll go with you to get wins like that where it's in your favor. I know it's cliche, but it has to be a big confidence boost, right?
Yeah, I think Mashburn was hitting on it in his post-game interview that, every game is a big game for them, and that makes it more fun. And as a player, that's what you get up for. When you're playing against a subpar team, sometimes it's hard to find the energy to play at the same level. And a lot of the times when you're playing a good time, you rise up to the competition. And that's what Lobos were able to do last night. And I think looking forward, all the opportunity is still there. They're able, obviously, to hang with Boise and Utah. And I'm just excited, looking forward to the tournament. And one thing, though, these guys, Amzil, again, in his interview after the previous game at San Diego State, was saying he wants a ring for the conference tournament. And I just hope they slow down and focus on these last few games before they get there, because that's a long way away. And I know these guys have had a long season, but at this point, these kids are like professionals. They're getting paid. They're probably not going to class too often, and they should be treating it like a job if you're getting paid. So I just hope they finish strong.
Yeah, I remember you saying that after the San Diego State game when we were talking on Sunday. He was like, "Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting to the tournament." It's like, well, you did what you needed to do last night, and I guess your 1-3 help. But again, he's played very, very well. Dent, and again, thanks to Steve Kirkland, UNM men's basketball SID. Obviously, I've already mentioned it. UNM's is some notes on the game. Dent, that's his 3rd coast-to-coast game-winning layup of the season. UT Arlington, the team down south, and New Mexico State, and then against Colorado State. New Mexico had just 4 turnovers. I read that. JT Toppin set a UNM freshman blocks record with 51 eclipsing the previous record of 50 by Kenny Thomas. I'm sure Kenny's thrilled about that. The Lobos have defeated 3 ranked teams in the pit in a season for the first time ever. And the Lobos have clinched a 500 record in the Mountain West for the first time in 5 years. They finished 12-6 in 2017 and 2018, and they have led by double figures at some point in all of their 21 wins this season. So when they do win, for the most part, they've kicked the living hell out of people, and it's been savage beatings. It's that time, and I'll give you guys a second to think about that.
And this is a snake of the week, bro.
My snake of the week is Snake just running onto the court right after the game. It's the most Snake thing to do. So I thought that was impressive. And then I always do something that's non-UNM related. Elijah, oh man, what's his name? The guy from FAU tonight, and his dunk. I think it's Elijah Mitchell. Martin. He baptized somebody from Southern Methodist tonight. So that's my snake of the week. Jacob, I'll start with you.
Cool. I was going to say something about that just because I thought it was hilarious. But for me, I think the obvious one is Dent, obviously, for winning the game. But for me, it's Nelly. I like to give the big guys some credit. And like I've said, I think that this team is very guard oriented. But those guys are so crucial to our success. And a night where JT Toppin didn't clearly have it, and that's not been very often. Nelly stepped up in a huge way to fill that void with a big double-double. It seems like if Toppin's not getting one, Nelly's getting one, and that's huge. So for me, it would be Nelly and his toughness on defense on Cartier, and then also his rebound and points production last night.
Rick, I will go to you.
Mine will be Jeff Goodman, the reporter that was in town reporting. There was another Twitter battle that he was having with someone a few weeks ago, but he gave UNM some good publicity on the Field of 68 podcast this morning. He enjoyed the airport of Albuquerque and also thought if the Lobos do get an 8-9 seed that they could cause a problem for a 1 seed potentially. So he thought big things about the team, and it seems like a lot of reporters have been coming through Albuquerque and giving the pit good press this year.
It's been a while. Nick, to you.
Snake of the week for me is going to go to Coach Patino. I don't know if we've given him a snake of the week yet, but
I don't think so. I'm sure he's thrilled.
I thought he made some good late game, coaching adjustments. I mean, like I said, calling that timeout when he did after the first free throw of Stevens, having the guys ready with the play call, the subs he made to get Amzil and Baker in the game. I thought he just made some really good coaching adjustments, coached them well for the final play. So, snake of the week, Coach Patino.
Yeah, Jeff Goodman from the Field of 68. When Eric and I were at the conference media days for basketball, the Field was 68 there, and it was kind of cool to be sitting across from Doug Gottlieb, whether you like him or don't. I'm in the industry. I respect a lot of these guys. It's kind of only 2 or 3 that I really hate. Maybe Jason Whitlock, Skip Bayless, Stephen A. Smith, who doesn't really irritate me that much. If you really want to get under my skin, and I have been called that by a state fan, is I was trying to be the Skip Bayless of New Mexico. I'm not a Cowboy fan. I'm the most anti-Cowboy thing. Ask Miguel Lujan and Nick Chato, Rick, and Jeff Carrillo. Still to this day, Jeff Carrillo is very upset that he didn't answer my phone call after that divisional game 16 years later. Yeah. What was I saying? Yeah, the publicity, man, has been really good. Jeff Goodman, sitting next to Robbie Hummel, that was awesome for how great of a college player he was. But you've got the Athletic here. You have had the Field of 68. And even the other reporters that came in, I think Nick Lawrenson of Mid-Major Madness was trying to get here, and I think Kevin Sweeney came here last year. We had him on last year, and Jeff Grammer recently had him on his podcast. He came through last year, so it's a good thing.
You got to also see, Ryan. If you haven't looked at Twitter, you got to see the picture of Snake and Jeff Goodman together. It's great. It's unbelievable.
I saw it. It's fantastic. I was just about to say I shit on a lot of things about Albuquerque, but when I was back east, I ended up talking sports. They're like, "Isn't that where the pit is?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a UNM alum." I am looking forward to the Air Force game, and then I'm going to the Boise to um, go to the Boise State game, and then it looks like we are going to Las Vegas, Nevada for the Mountain West Conference tournament. So I'm getting excited for that, and I'm praying that maybe UNM gets drawn in Brooklyn, New York, in the first round because I wouldn't have to pay for lodging anywhere. I could stay with some family and friends in New Jersey, and I haven't been back since I left. Anyway, we are. I was gonna try to play like some party song. I know this is terrible because we didn't have the parents on today, and Eric and Mr. Ed Nunez, your dad's calling a game down in Western, and Eric's traveling for his day job. And I don't know why I got Little John stuck in my head today. Get out of your mind. I was going to play it, but it's really, try to limit myself to the one curse word per episode. And that song, I cannot play unless I had the edited version, which I didn't have time to look up. But anyway, I want to thank you guys for joining us. And Nick, as always, I'm glad you were here for this episode. I always enjoy when you come on the episode, when you talk Lobo basketball with us. Follow us on the artist formerly known as Twitter. It is X at the Pit Press NM. You can see it there on your screen if you're watching on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram at the Pit Press NM. We're also on Facebook. And then head over to our website, which, if I do say so myself, looks pretty good at the pitpressnm.com. Do any of you guys have some final thoughts, or as Jerry Springer used to do, any final thoughts from any of you?
Just if you live in Albuquerque, you better go watch Bella Hines. She scored like 45 points straight in like 4 games in a row and is destroying people. And there's never going to be a high school basketball player like that in the state for a long time. So if you like basketball, go check her out. I'm just watching on the internet, and what she's doing is bonkers.
Nick, do you have anything to say to that?
I'll echo Rick. State tournament basketball here in the state of New Mexico coming up. It's the district tournaments next week, and then 2 rounds of state. So check it out. Interesting time.
And check out Nick and Ed's podcast.
I was just about to say, check out Road to the Pit, high school basketball journey here in the state of New Mexico with Nick and Ed. And then your dad and I are continuing our Lobo Legends series that we do. I'm very happy about this Friday's. We had David Chiotti last week, not for continuity purposes, but Clayton Shields is joining us. And it looks like we have Royce Only lined up in about 2 weeks. And I forget who your dad and I are talking to next week as I'm in Boise. But the next episode is Clayton Shields. I'm excited about that. And then Royce Only should be very cool. I've been asked that if we can get Brian Urlacher and Luke Longley on, those are really long shots. And I've been told from very credible sources that Brian Urlacher only talks to Van Tate. And I love Van Tate, but if anybody else was going to ask me, no, I think we've gotten some good guests on. On behalf of Rick Thompson, then there's baby Rick, Rick Thompson, Jacob Neff, and Nick Nunez. I'm Ryan Tamori. We will talk to you post Air Force. Everybody enjoy the game. Have a great weekend. I am Ryan Tamori. Thank you for listening.